to the Unofficial Steelers Podcast, the podcast so unofficial it doesn't have a home. Here's your host, from In Hindsight, Nathan Heitz. From Steelers Nation Australia, Mark Davison. And from State of the Steelers, Daniel J. Here we go.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another post-game show. I'm Daniel. This is the State of the Steelers and also the Unofficial Steelers Podcast. Nate might be jumping on here in a few seconds just to kind of talk about and recap the game that we just saw. Pittsburgh Steelers show life, show improvement. I mean, I was pleasantly surprised for the first time in God knows how long. I mean, I know that it's been thrown out there how many games it's been, but the Pittsburgh Steelers finally go over 400 yards offensively. They finally outgain an opponent. The result is similar, a win-score victory, but this team actually looked like an NFL team today. And that was something that I was extremely excited about. Up until this point, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Najee said it right, last week, you just can't keep winning that way. It's not a formula for success. Now, they still need to ring the bell, as the announcer said on the broadcast. They got to get it into the end zone. No more of these field goals. I mean, 16-10. Really, honestly, truly. I mean, first and foremost, the touchdown to Deontay in the first quarter. That should have been a touchdown for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I saw it right away. I even wrote it down on my notebook. I was like, touchdown. And I was like, Tomlin's got to challenge this. I felt that because the Steelers were on offense, that he would have had an opportunity to have his team review it, and it was going to be a touchdown. And then, the Steelers end up running a play on it. I think it's 3rd and 2 or something like that. Jalen Warren ends up fumbling the ball. And at first I was like, what? This ain't going the right way, right? And Deontay Johnson, who probably was a little bit defeated by the fact that, that wasn't a touchdown, which it should have been. This team should have been up another 7 points. Should have been nowhere near as close as what the score says it is. But, Steelers end up not giving up, not quitting. They don't end up being defeated, and they end up, even though there was a fumble in the next play with Jalen Warren, and Deontay Johnson just kind of lets the ball roll around, and he doesn't move or do anything. Now, that's been a big topic of discussion when it comes to, Twitterverse and social media, is why wasn't Deontay Johnson, trying to go and, at least recover or attempt to tackle the guy that had the ball. First and foremost, I think he thought that Jalen Warren was on the ground. I mean, he still shouldn't, stop on the play. He still needs to continue until the whistle blows. I mean, that's what you're taught when you're in Pee Wee football, ain't it? Well, anyways, fortunately, that didn't kill the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers did not allow that to happen. Kenny Pickett was 24 for 33, 278 yards, no touchdowns, but no interceptions. He was sacked twice for 10 yards, had a rating of 97.8. Najee Harris, 15 carries for 99 yards, just one away from the century mark, 6.6 average, one touchdown, 22-yard long. Jalen Warren was 13 of 49, 3.8 average. And he ended up having the one lost fumble. Pickett ended up running the ball 5 for 5 times. So 153 total yards on the ground, 268 yards through the air. It was an impressive day for the Steelers. And more so for Pat Freiermuth. I think that Pat Freiermuth had a huge day. I think that the fact that the Steelers were targeting the inside of the field or the middle of the field was probably something that caught the Cincinnati Bengals off guard, as, the tight end wasn't used very often or wasn't the focal point of the offense. So it was a good attack for the Pittsburgh Steelers, given the fact that was a quote unquote weakness of Kenny Pickett and the Pittsburgh Steelers offense. And did Freiermuth have himself a game? I mean, he came down with 9 receptions, 120 yards. I think this was a career long for him. He had 11 targets. He needs to get the ball more. And, I think that if this was the outcome by firing Matt Canada, we should have done this, in the off season. I think that clearly this team today, not just taking apart, taking away the game plan and things like that, just looking at it from the aspect of they played like a team today. They played physically, they played tough, they played for each other. In the last couple of games, especially in the last one against the Browns, my biggest complaint in that game was that the Pittsburgh Steelers played less physical than the Browns. The Browns had their intensity was significantly above, or another, tier, notch, step, whatever you want to call it, above the Pittsburgh Steelers last week. And this week, the Steelers came to play. They woke up, and is that something that's going to be that's going to be consistent? I think it can be, as long as the Steelers continue on this and continue to roll on. They got a really advantageous schedule remaining left. I think it's considered the second easiest schedule based on where the team stand currently today. Remaining, so I think this is definitely going to be a team we're going to see in January when it comes time for the wild card. Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be up there, and if they can play like they played today, I think that they can very much well compete in the AFC. Right now there's not really a team that scares me in the AFC, and I've said it this entire year. If the Steelers can just have a mediocre, competent offensive team, I think that they could probably do some damage because of the defense, the opportunistic defense that they have, which I think the Steelers may have found a diamond in the rough when it comes to Trenton Thompson. He had the interception today. He had a almost pick last week. During preseason, I was impressed with him. I think that he's a guy that can be what Terrell Edmonds wasn't. Hard hitting, strong, but also a ball hawking ability. Maybe. I mean, he's got his hands on two, brought one in. I think in 2 consecutive games, if he can just be that guy that can be in the box, be that hard hitting guy that can also not be a liability. I mean, we're not looking for him to be Troy Polamalu or anything like that. But if he can allow, for instance, Minkah Fitzpatrick to return back to his deep safety ball hawking position back there, and if we have somebody that's usable in the box, like I think that he can be, I think this defense can definitely be more than just, good. I think they can be really, really good. And I think they can cover up some of the issues that they have in the interior or in the inside linebacker position. Because you don't lose 2 of your starters that you're expecting to have a big, be a big component to your defense, especially when it comes to the coverage aspect of your team, to go down and not expect it to have an effect on your team, right? So I think that, was it Michael Walker? I think he played all right. I couldn't, last week he played quite a bit of game, quite a bit of snaps. I saw him out there, but I thought that was a safety with him being number 38. It's kind of weird seeing a middle linebacker number 38, but it is what it is. He's doing all right. I think he's serviceable. I'll be interested in, Blake Martinez when he comes back, or once he gets not so much comes back, but once he gets accustomed to the defense and the team, see what he's able to do there as an inside linebacker. But I think that, Minkah Fitzpatrick coming back, hopefully relatively soon, is just going to make this defense go up to another level. TJ Watt had another TJ Watt game. He just looks so much bigger than the Cincinnati Bengals quarterback. Like when he sacked him that one play, I almost felt bad for him. Almost, not quite, but almost. Let's see. Deontay Johnson, he did all right today. I think he was four receptions for 50 yards. He had a long of 39 yards. He should have also had that touchdown, like I mentioned earlier. It didn't come in, but I thought that Tomlin was going to challenge it. I could have swore he was. I thought it was, 3 feet in and it's a touchdown. Didn't happen. Allen Robinson, he had one catch. It was a big one. I believe it was a 3rd down and ended up going for 11 yards. Either way, it was a 1st down on that play. Darnell Washington he was on the camera quite a bit for blocking today. I think he had 1 reception for 10 yards, but his blocking was on display today. He had been a question mark in the last couple of weeks. Now, I will say that I did think that there was a possibility that maybe he was getting a little bit handsy on there. I see Nathan in the back. Give me the thumbs up when you're ready to come on in, man. All right. Welcome to the show, Nathan Hines from In Hindsight. How's it going, my man?
Good, man. Good. Feeling good. Wanted to come on here, talk to you, talk to all the people in the chat. What's going on, everybody? Good to see you guys.
So, knee-jerk reaction. What are your thoughts? Steelers score 16 points. It's still under 20. It's still a one-possession game. But I think that this team may have turned a corner offensively. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, knee-jerk reaction. We'll see how we're all feeling as the week goes on, guys. But knee-jerk reaction, honestly, the way they're playing offense kept me invested in the game. It actually felt different. It felt refreshed. It felt kind of exciting. We were seeing some things that we haven't seen in a while, and we can kind of detail some of that as we talk more about it. But yeah, it was. I actually had a feeling like watching this offense. I didn't know how many points they're gonna put up, but to me, it felt like, okay, that this feels like an offense I can put up 25 points.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, this is the first time they get 400 yards, and since Ben Roethlisberger was there, since before Matt Canada. Did you expect such a difference in offensive ability? Since basically the only thing that they did was fire Matt Canada. I mean, the scheme was the same, the plays were the same. Maybe the usage and or the targets may have been different. Did you expect some sort of big turnaround? And do you think that this is going to be consistent?
Good question. I wouldn't say I expected, and probably most of us didn't expect like anything drastic or crazy happening. But even though like they didn't like overcomplicate things, or like it didn't look like it was like a complete landscape of something like different, they at the same time it felt different, and it felt like something that is like, when you look at this win, even though they only scored 16 points, it felt like that it's something that this is sustainable, right? It felt like an offense that's sustainable. If this is the type of offense, you're not going to get 400 yards every game, but if this is an offense where you're finding the productivity and you're utilizing the middle of the field, you're trusting Kenny, you're getting the guys like Pickens and Freiermuth more involved in terms of how much of a playmakers they can be. It feels like an offense that can be sustainable throughout the rest of the year. And I feel like with what we saw today, if they're implementing this the next few weeks or so, the points are going to come. I think we're going to start seeing a little bit over 20, because their next scheduled games, you got the Cardinals, you got the Patriots, you got the Colts, and you got Cincinnati again at home. Those are the next 4 games. And not only will they be favored in those games, but those are games where I feel like that with what they executed today on offense, even though the scoreboard didn't necessarily show it, those points are going to come. So it felt like sustainable to me. It feels like something that it could be a possible turn of the corner, turn of the page, because you have that dead weight off your back now. Players felt more bought in. It seemed like there was a more fresh life on offense. Things were moving, and it just felt like a new offense, even though like it wasn't. It felt new, and I think that if you're going to implement stuff like that each week, especially these next 4 games, man, I think we're going to start seeing some over 20-point games. I really do.
Yeah, I'll say this. Up until this point, it just really did feel like regression and step backwards.
Yeah.
It's just steps were being taken backwards every single week. Ever since probably the Vegas Raiders game, I think that was like the high point. And then it'd come and go a little bit there, here and there, but it was never consistent. And like I said, today it finally felt like this was an NFL offense on display. I'm not saying it was a good NFL offense. I'm not saying it's a great NFL offense, but an NFL offense neither way. And, before what we were seeing was like flashes of trick plays working here and there. Nothing else worked. I mean, it was to the point where the players looked like they didn't understand, basic fundamentals of football.
Yeah.
You had screenplays where the running back was running up in front of their blockers, the linemen, instead of being behind them. I mean, you had other screenplays where you had Najee Harris touching the lineman before he turns around to receive the ball. I think it took like 4 seconds for that screenplay to develop. Yeah. I mean, you've had a lot of other things that just everybody was on the wrong page. You had, air balls that were going and nobody was around. And all of a sudden, it just kind of seems like what they were able to do was get into like some sort of rhythm and stay in it, which is something that they have struggled with this entire season. And just to kind of get into a rhythm and have some sort of almost like normal function. Now, today, it's the first time that they were able to display some sort of competent offensive scheme. Let's see how they do over the next couple of games. I do like the fact that their schedule is weaker, so it allows them to improve,
right,
while thus not having to go up against some daunting teams that could affect the schedule. 7-4.
You can start getting your feet wet more these next few games, and if they're able to be productive on offense, it's just going to be a great feeling overall. And sure, it's like, okay, well, look at the defenses they played and stuff like that, or look at the teams they played. Yeah, you got to play who you have on your schedule, but with getting rid of your offensive coordinator mid-season and having two guys collaboratively work together, and that's at least something that is for sure in their favor, that you can start kind of getting your feet wet. You can start, if you can kind of get those things clicking these next 3-4 games, and then your final stretch. And then if you find yourself in the playoffs, that's where you want to be.
I agree.
Yeah, but it was just exciting. It felt, even though the final score was 16-10, and you look at that, you're like, that's kind of what the Steelers' final scores have looked like. It didn't feel like it was a 16-10 game. Honestly, it felt like it was like a 23-24 to 10 win game for me. To me, I was excited. And like, when you look across a couple offenses in the NFL, like, of course, when you look at the Steelers offense today, like, all right, great, they cracked over 400 yards, but it's a big deal though, because they haven't done that in over 50 games. It's a big deal because this offense has been taking a step back each week. Your quarterback has been regressing. You haven't been, guys like Pickens and Johnson have been frustrated. It's been a dead offense. But now, after you fire your offensive coordinator, you have over 400 yards of yardage. Both Najee Harris was 1 yard away from 100 yards for his first game this year. You have Kenny Pickett probably looking the best he's looked all year. And you have Pat Freiermuth coming in who gets over 100 yards. You have George Pickens, he wasn't really too involved throughout a lot of the game, but he came in big with that big play down the field. He had over 70 yards. It just felt different. It felt like an offense that was scoring over 20 points. So even though they would have, if they probably challenged that touchdown, they might have gotten that.
They would have.
Yeah, but they that's what it felt like. So, and it's a good feeling. It's a good feeling, not just because they won, but their wins, Daniel, as everybody will agree, like them winning like 16 to whatever or 17 or whatever, like their wins didn't feel sustainable. They were getting by each win and stuff like that. This one felt like it's something that this is something that you can win off of.
Yeah, and there's one other thing that you didn't see from the Steelers post game. Even after wins, it was stuff like this. Now I gotta mute this for the
copyright. Yeah, I haven't seen that. Have not seen that. That was a feel good win, man. And they should feel good. Everybody on the offense. Yep. Daniel had to go for a quick second. He'll slide back in, but everybody on the offense, like they should be feeling good, man. Like, they're probably looking like, okay, like they themselves are looking at, we definitely would have had over 20 probably if we challenged that play. But they should be feeling good. Their production, they should be feeling good that this is something that they can do each week going forward. And like you said, Daniel, these next few games is a great opportunity for them to get their offense settled.
Oh, thank you, Front Street Dan. I appreciate that. Don, subscribe.
Appreciate you.
So this is something that we hadn't seen in a while. In fact, if you take a closer look, who's that right there? That's George Pickens doing some dancing. We haven't seen him excited in a while. Yeah. I mean, this was when it came down to it. At the end of last game, I think what really was the straw that broke the camel's back when it came to Matt Canada and his offense and his tenure with the Pittsburgh Steelers was the fact that I think he lost the locker room. And you had Najee Harris saying the things he was saying. You had Deontay Johnson, who was getting in fights with everybody. I mean, he was upset with everyone. I think he had to be restrained from going at Canada on the sideline. He also had, apparently him and Tomlin had a heated discussion on the sideline as well. And then after the game, it spewed over to the fact that where he and Minka Fitzpatrick, got into some words. So I think he was losing the team, and the Steelers needed to make a move.
Yeah.
And, I would have purposely liked it, personally would have liked it to happen sooner, but it happened now.
Yeah.
And the Steelers have a path forward that they can start doing things getting things going in the right direction. Right. It's not, and the North isn't even over. I think the Browns have an easier schedule, but they still have a pretty big question mark at the quarterback position. And then the Ravens, I think, have one of the more tougher schedules remaining down the road.
Yeah, they got the Chargers tonight, so that will be an interesting game. Hopefully it's good just in general, because they need some of these primetime games have been bad. Raul, we hear you, man. 400 yards, 16 points. They would have had over 20 if they probably challenged that, but the points are going to come. If this is what they're going to produce each week, not necessarily 400 yards, but just production, drives continuing to move on, utilizing the middle of the field, just a variety of all the different things. I mean, you can even look at Kenny's passing chart, and if that's something that you're going to see each week, the points are going to come, man. Believe me, the points are going to come. Just going to take maybe a game or two. I really think that they're going to come, especially with who they got coming up. Chris G, this is the best I've ever felt about 16 points. That's what I'm saying, dude. It honestly felt like, even though they only scored 16, I think people should be optimistic, cautiously optimistic, but it felt like a game where that they were just putting points on the board. It really did. Even though they weren't necessarily, it really did.
When I thought that this game was going to be different, the first play when they targeted Pat Freiermuth. Yeah, when they targeted Pat Freiermuth down the middle, and it went for big yards. I knew that the drive ended out with a 3-and-out right after that. Right, it was a big play down the seam to the middle to the tight end, which were all plays that we hadn't really seen under Matt Canada. We hadn't seen the tight end involvement. We haven't seen up the seam play or throws through the middle of the field. And so I saw that happen, and not only did I see it happen, but I saw it happen confidently. It wasn't like a situation where, Kenny Pickett is scrambling around or he has happy feet and he's looking here and there. And then somebody who's been open for a while in the middle of the field, he finally throws the ball to. This was either designed or he read the defense and put it there. Either way, it was excellent. Yeah. And I knew at that point, just the speed, the urgency, the intensity, the physicality that the team was approaching this game with, that this team was going to take control of the game.
Yeah.
Now,
100%.
I honestly thought we were going to get more than 16 points, and we should have. We can talk about the should haves, but that is one thing that the Steelers need to work on next is getting it into the end zone.
Right.
But I mean, just to look competent for 4 quarters. I mean, for 4 quarters. I mean, I know they didn't score in all 4 quarters, but they look confident in 4 quarters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
I think, 16 points or not, offensively, I think this was their best showing all year. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, it definitely was. There's no question. The fact you're hitting over 400 yards, you're running the ball, you're pushing the ball down the field. It seems like almost everybody's getting a look one way or another. It definitely was their best showing. And that's what I'm saying. Why 16 points? It doesn't feel like 16 points, but it definitely was. Mm-hmm. And I think it's going to make people excited because even though, like, of course, whatever team you're a fan of, you're going to watch them each week. But sometimes there's a level of having excitement versus not having excitement as much, like tuning into your team each week because, like, you're like, I kind of know what to expect. That's kind of how it's felt like with the Steelers a lot this year is like, okay, I appreciate that they're winning games, but like, it's just not fun. It's not exciting. We know the problems that are there. Now with what we saw today, like I said, you're going to, of course, be cautiously optimistic about it, but it's going to make you excited to tune in into the next couple weeks, especially because now you're going to be able to see, okay, we saw what we did on offense here. I'm excited to see what we're going to do next week. I'm excited to see, are we going to be able to take another step forward and start maybe getting some more points on the board? Are we going to be able to have same level production, somewhat level production? So it makes you more excited, I feel. And every fan should feel that way, in my opinion. So it was definitely their best showing all year.
What do you think about this? Joey Porter versus Jamar Chase. Steelers versus Bengals. 85.7% shadow rate, 24 of 28. His press coverage was 41.7% at the time. He was only targeted twice. He did get 2 receptions for 36 yards. Average targeted separation was less than a yard. I thought he did amazing. I mean, I get it. The guy got 2 targets, but he's shadowing Jamar Chase. That's one of the most premier, or one of the premier wide receivers in the game today, regardless of who the quarterback is. The separation there is what it is.
Yeah.
No, this guy 100%. He's the real deal, I think.
Yeah. And so really all you can say is thank you, Ryan Poles of the Chicago Bears. Thank you, Chase Claypool. We appreciate it, man. We really do. The Steelers really have found themselves something with Joey Porter, and he's gonna have his games. Like he's gonna have games where he gives up yards. He's gonna that happens to every cornerback. But if you're getting consistent production, that's what separates top corners compared to middle of the pack type cornerbacks. If you're getting consistent production out of those guys, and they've gotten that from him. So it's been a breath of fresh air being able to draft a cornerback that is playing probably even better than probably what people have expected, I think, so far.
I agree. I'll be honest with you, man. When the Steelers went out and acquired him, or when there was the rumors that they were going to acquire him at the 17 overall pick, I was concerned. I thought this was going to be a pick just based on their name, or based on his name, based on the legacy of his father, the whole 9 yards, right? And I was a little bit concerned. He had 1 interception in college. But they never threw him the ball, and for probably good reason, or threw the ball to his direction. The guy is phenomenal. He is more than what his name is or what his dad did.
Very impressive.
Up to this point, right? There's still a lot of football in his career to go, but up to this point, with what he's been able to do, going up against some of these, number 1 receivers, Deontay Adams, the Jamar Chases of the world. I really think that the Steelers got a guy there, and the second round you couldn't beat it. What are your thoughts on that play where Deontay Johnson it's the fumble play? Obviously, he didn't get the touchdown to play before. He might be a little bit defeated, a little upset or whatever, but you got to play to the whistle, right?
Yeah, you do. You got to play to the whistle, because even though a lot of times when you see stuff like that happen, it gets brought back, it ended up being fumble. And you have to play to it every time, because you never know. So that's just a level of we've seen that before from him in over the last couple years, where there's a time here, there's a time there, where there's lack of effort, there's lack of being involved in terms of if you're not getting the ball, or in terms of just doing things when the ball is not in your hands. Sometimes there's been lack of effort there, and today was a showing of that. I think Deontay's a talented guy. The offense needs a guy like that, but when you have somebody like that who's not showing effort, and the guy grabs the ball and runs yards on a fumble, I mean, dude, come on. It's something. It's little details like that that can even make or break a game. Honestly, I kind of view it like free throws in the NBA. It's things like that. It's small things like that you can look back and say, because let's say that's something, I don't know, there's the game didn't go that way, but if there's a different aspect that happens in the game, that could be something back and say, well, if Deontay Johnson, got involved and the guy didn't get more yards, for example, then that's something that you look back and say, okay, that broke the game. Not that it did, but I'm saying, like, that's an instance future wise where you can have a small detail or something like that happen that ends up hurting you, and that you're going to look back on and happens. And it happens every year when you have little stuff like that. So it wasn't a good look just giving up like that. You can't, you just can't do that. It's potential risk. It's potential of killing your own team. no matter how annoyed or frustrated you are with some things, like you just can't. And it's a level of maturity. It's a level of being a teammate. The level of, I don't know, in my opinion, that, and he's not the only wide receiver. There's just so many wide receivers in the league that I feel like just value their production over playing winning football.
Yeah, I agree, man. I agree.
Yeah.
This game, but like we mentioned earlier, I mean, this game was
Right.
huge. Going into this game, had the Steelers lost, there's a good opportunity there in fourth place. They win today. Cleveland, who are they playing again? I can't think
Denver.
of the top of my head.
They're in
Denver. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Denver's been doing all right. Been doing all right here recently.
Russell Wilson's been better than he was last year. He's been playing some good football. He's been getting the ball in the end zone. Denver started slow, but they had a big win against the Chiefs. They had a big win last week, so they've been getting momentum. They're still in the race themselves, so they're still playing for something. They're still playing to get in the playoffs.
Yeah, the Steelers split with the Browns, so I think they still hold the tiebreaker if they end up both 7-4 at the end of today. And I mean, you never know what happens with the Ravens and the Chargers tonight. If something goes the Steelers' way, I mean, they're still in the hunt for the AFC North. And
absolutely, still there, man, still there. And then Baltimore doesn't have Mark Andrews, and that's a big loss for them.
That is
so. They have they're a little banged up on their offensive line. Their defense has been better than I think anybody expected. Their pass rush and everything like that. I think Baltimore's done a great job there. But not having Mark Andrews, he's your heart and soul of your offense, and that stings, man. That stings because you have wide receivers that are vulnerable in that Baltimore offense. I like Zay Flowers, but Odell shows up for one play a game. You have Rashad Bateman, who hasn't materialized in this league yet, and Nelson Aguilar, I mean, he's had issues with drops too. So there's some inconsistency there. They have a couple running backs that can run the ball, but again, their offensive line has to be efficient. They're a little banged up. So I don't think that this game tonight, even though it's in Baltimore, I don't think it's a gimme.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree with you. Coach T said in his press conference, kind of echoing what he said last time he was up there, but this time in a winning effort. He says, guys like myself and Kenny, man, we're judged based on winning and losing, and we don't run from that. He and I are winners today. I think that says it. He really does believe and has confidence in his quarterback and Kenny Pickett, and that he thinks that he can really, steer the ship in the right direction.
Yeah.
At least that's what it says to me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's always the main thing. I know people, myself, Daniel included, of course, that we all expected Kenny to be in a different spot at this point. And I was just kind of always in the boat, even going into the year, like, okay, he's still going to have struggle, I believe, especially with the offensive coaching that's there with Matt Canada and stuff. But I was hoping to see like just different stretches of good play. Okay, so it's in LA. Thank you, Jimbo. All right, so it's in LA. So even there, so Ravens are going to be on the road.
Yeah.
But I want, like, it was just one of those things, like, okay, like going into this year, I was like, I'm going to expect to see some stretches of good play. I'm expecting probably to see some stretches of struggle there. A lot of it's been struggle, but I think that to me, another thing to me today, watching Kenny play, he didn't feel scared. He didn't feel scared to me playing today, man. When we look at him in recent weeks, he felt scared. He didn't want to, he just didn't want to turn over the ball. He just looked like a typical backup that comes in to play conservative. But is it something where you think that Canada didn't trust him, and now you look at Mike Sullivan and Faulkner, and they're maybe like, hey, just go be yourself. We trust you. If you turn the ball over, you turn the ball over, man. But you got to make the plays, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. It felt like he wasn't just playing conservative football today. And he wasn't. He was getting the ball. He was pushing the ball. He was having some big throws down the field. But to me, this was the first time this year that it looked like he was just more free in this offense. And
right.
I think that it felt that way to me. It looked that way to me. I could be wrong. I'm not going to make any assumptions or make certain, say anything for certain, but maybe it was something where Matt Canada just didn't really trust him in certain ways and wanted him to do this and want him to do that. And then meanwhile, the opposite is go be yourself, go play free. You turn over the ball. You know what? It's okay. We need you to make these plays. And he did. I don't know. That's the way that I perceived it today. It looked like he was just more free out there.
It very well could have been. I think he did seem a lot more confident, maybe confident in his knowledge and what he was doing. I mean, it could have been a lot of things. Maybe it could have been a one or two things. Either Matt Canada was micromanaging him or overcomplicating things. Like, for instance, if he's going in there and he's telling, Kenny Pickett something to the effect, like, if you see the coordinator turn this way or open up that way, look for this route. And if this route is covered, you can look for that route. And if they drop here, they drop there, and just really, really overcomplicating things and making him think a little too much. And then when you go into something maybe just kind of a little bit more simplified, where it's like, all right, if you see this type of defense, look at this concept here, and just, if it's not there, then, look over here, or even run the ball. He got out of the pocket a couple of times, used his legs a few times as well. And I think that the combination maybe of the two could have been there. A little bit of micromanaging, maybe perhaps, that maybe Canada's telling his quarterback to run his offense, to throw the ball or to look at and only look at the area that's designed. I mean, it wouldn't be the first time. I think it was Cordell Stewart who said that. I think it was against Carolina in this one game where he ended up having like a 67-yard rush from, it was a drop back pass. Nobody was open. He ran up the field and scored a touchdown. Gets off the field, and his offensive coordinator is telling him, you should have thrown here. And, you saw this over there. You widened the ball, go over here, instead of, saying, hey, man, that was a good decision. You ran up the field and you scored a touchdown. We won the game.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's just bad coaching to me. Yeah, that's just bad coaching. Like that example you gave right there, that's just poor coaching.
That is poor coaching, but that is one of the things that Cordell Stewart did have to deal with back in the day. And, I think that it wouldn't be the first time that those things happen. When you, in today's league, I mean, what are people saying right now, right? They're looking at the Shanahan tree, they're looking at this person's tree, and all these different concepts and all this stuff that works. Well, that stuff don't work if your players are doing something different than what you're coaching, right?
Yeah.
You can't say those things. So maybe there's a little bit of that involved into why it didn't work up until this point. But it's one game. We can't put the cart before the horse. Too much. I mean, we're fans and we can rejoice in this and that. But it is one game. We got to see how he does in the next couple of weeks. Kenny Pickett and the offense.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, you got to let it play out. That's what I mean. Like, it's good to look forward, to kind of be excited about a couple things, but you got to keep your expectations in check still. Because you just never know any week. But I think everybody has a good feeling about where the offense could be by the end of the year, and going in the playoffs, especially this next 4-game stretch you have, there's no better opportunity to do it than now.
Well, I don't really think that the offense has to be anywhere too crazy for this team to be successful, to even be a contender. One of the biggest issues, and I think that the Steelers overcame today, maybe not overcame, but they were successful in, was the time of possession. I mean, 37 minutes for the Pittsburgh Steelers, being able to run the ball and control the time of possession, and not all be like on one drive, where the Pittsburgh Steelers will have a 12 or 10-minute drive, one drive a game, and then the rest is like 3 and out, 3 drives before and 2 drives after that one drive. It was competent football, something we hadn't seen all year. And I would say, once, just seeing that today on display, I'd say, in the last 2 years, that this was probably the most competent that our offense has looked, even going back to last year.
Yeah, absolutely. Last year was miserable within itself too. Even though they did better the second half of the season, still there was still just a lot of problems there, and it carried on into this year. And then they finally made a move, and I think that's why everybody kind of feels like excited or optimistic in a way, just because you haven't had this type of level of offense in quite a long time.
Yeah, and I
felt like a weight off the shoulders in a way, and now it's just more okay. Let's see what they do next week and the week after that. But it's definitely the right direction, 100%. And I think everybody should feel good on that.
I agree. I think even if the Steelers won in this fashion, by one score, or even if next week, it's the same thing. Let's say the Steelers, win by 2 or by 3 or 5 or whatever the case may be. They score under 27 points, still over 20, but, still haven't done anything but perform in a similar way where they appear to be competent. That seems more sustainable and than what they were doing before now. And it's the same
absolutely.
type of result, right? It's the same result. One score win, and defensive turnover here or there. But because the offense is competent, it looks sustainable, and it looks like it's also buildable. You couldn't build off of what Matt Canada and the Pittsburgh Steelers offense was doing up until this point. It was impossible. It was just like it's been said multiple times. It's just somebody calling plays. There's no foundation and structure and direction of where that offense was trying to go.
Yeah.
And in this one game, I feel that it is buildable upon and that it can get better.
Yeah.
Now, all I saw previously to this was regression and a trajectory that we didn't want to see happen.
Yeah.
I can see this going in the right direction.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. That's what I mean. It wasn't a win that they've been getting all year. This was different. This felt different. This looked different, even though like it wasn't like different. You guys know what I'm trying to say. But it's something that you can continue, like you said, to add on. And that's why I said I believe the points are going to come as these next games come along, especially after what you did today. Then you can take that into next Sunday and the following Thursday and the next Sunday after that, right? Like you can take that into your next few games and hopefully try to finally find an identity in your offense that you haven't had all year. There has been no identity. It's just like, okay, we're going to call this. Okay, we're going to call this play. All right, go to Jaylen Warren no matter what it's looking like. The ball is going there, blah, blah, blah. This was something, like you said, Daniel, that you can take into the next handful of games. The Steelers offense, you're not taking that into the next games because you're just rinsing and repeating it every single week. Now it's something that you can do. You can look and see what worked today. You can look at what your quarterback did. You can look at and see how you schemed Pat and George and all those guys as you take a look at the film against the Cardinals defense and what you want to do there. It's encouraging. And like what you said, it's one of those things where even though they only scored 16, the level of production on offense should have warranted more than 16. And that's why I said the points are going to come.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. What do you think about how predictable the offense was? Do you think you could predict? Was it predictable for you? Did you think that, the plays were?
Yeah, there were a few times like I could probably like you can probably look back and like whenever more film stuff like that comes out, you can look back and say, okay, yeah, like we've seen them do that. They've been liking to do this here, blah, blah, blah. But there were times where like I was like when they look set, I'm like, okay, is this possibly just going to be a run to the left side or something like that, for example? And okay, Kenny brought it back, and okay, there's Pat Frymuth right there for a gain of 8. Like that's just kind of picking examples. I'd have to kind of look back and look at everything, but especially just some of the middle of the field plays. Like going into this game, not really many people expected probably there to be a lot different, but maybe just a little something here, some minor details. There were some bigger things that the Steelers haven't been utilizing that they utilized today, that they put into action today, and you saw it work more times than not. And those are the times where I found myself like, wow, like, okay, we're working the middle of the field. Okay, we're continually moving the chains, and we're not just throwing these little slip screens or trying to get a Warren out in space. Like we're actually getting our position players involved, where it's just been absolutely dead the last 4 weeks. So that's what I mean. Like certain plays where you maybe think it would be a play on the ground or a first read type play. There were times I saw Kenny do a little check there, and then put the ball wherever he decided to put it. There were times where he did just go after his first guy, but I think just having times where you're not just using Deontay on out routes. You're not just using a George Pickens in a way of doing a little simple curl route or anything like that. You're not just doing little simplistic things that really aren't getting your offense moving. You're actually getting your guys in situations that play to their strengths, that get them to succeed. Because Pat Freiermuth, even last year, we saw him working the middle of the field more. We didn't see that all
Right.
year, even though he's been injured the last 4 games. We didn't see that all year. First game without Matt Canada, we're seeing that. We're seeing, just once you guys can go look at Kenny Pickett's pass chart, we're seeing some passes more down the field. We're seeing more passes inside the numbers rather than outside. And that alone, to me, it just speaks volumes.
I didn't really
feel
also
like Matt
see.
Canada trusted him to put the ball inside.
Right. And I didn't really see any like error throws where, I saw a couple of the balls hit the ground or whatnot, but it's usually due to pressure and things like that. I didn't see, a bad throw or an overthrow. And I thought that the weather was going to be a huge component in this game, given the fact that it was cold, it was rainy, Pickett with the 2 gloves. I thought that that concerns me. Gloves in rain, gloves wet with ball. That with a football, it's usually slick. That's a huge concern for me. So I thought that the weather was going to play a factor against Kenny Pickett. And even though that was, he was wearing the gloves and, the weather was up and down, he was still able to go out there and be accurate with the ball. I mean, I thought that pass down the line to Deontay Johnson was really good.
Yeah, no, it definitely was. He had some really good throws today. He didn't, like, his throws didn't look off. They weren't he had a couple where there was some pressure in his face. He got hit as he was trying to get the ball off. There was 1 or 2, again, kind of miscues with Deontay. There was one on 3rd down. Kind of looked like he threw it a little outside to Deontay. Deontay was inside. So just kind of little minor details like that. But adding on to what you were saying, he was hitting the stuff that was there, man. And he hasn't been doing that. And that's what I mean. Is that something where that's a Canada thing, where Canada's kind of been in his head and like stuff that's been there, Kenny hasn't been hitting because Canada wants him to do something else? Is that something of where a lack of confidence, and now Kenny kind of has that confidence in the sense of now he's able to do a little bit more that he wants to do, that he knows he can do? I don't know. We'll never be able to really get the answer to that, but it's something to kind of think about and a thought to kind of put out there, because if he's hitting the things that are there this game, but he hasn't been doing it the last handful of games, what was the ultimate catalyst to that,
Yeah.
Because he was pretty on point with almost everything.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we got to look at the all-22. You're usually not as good as you think you are, or as bad as you thought you were either as well. So, we got to go back and look at that once it comes out, and I'll be breaking that down. That usually starts coming out around Tuesday. So for those that are interested in that and that type of content, make sure you hit that like and subscribe and ring that notification bell. I'm super interested in seeing this tape because I want to see the difference. And I want to see more so, like, because I've already seen a lot of times where I've seen Kenny Pickett see, or at least his head is looking or facing the direction of the middle of the field, and there's an open receiver there, and nothing happens. I want to see, what was the difference. I also want to see if he's looking off more or less, because I really didn't see him doing that too much, and when he did, it was obvious. It was like a real quick look, and then it was like, all right, turn around and look where he was at. It wasn't it wasn't appropriate, or what you would have thought that would have worked. I mean, it was obvious. It wasn't going to fake anybody. It's like doing a play action pass without a running back there. I mean, you can do the motion, but it's not going to do anything.
Oh man, I wouldn't be surprised if Matt Canada called that, man.
I think I've seen it. But the Pittsburgh Steelers, they win 16 to 10. It should have been more, but we'll take it. We'll take the dub. The Pittsburgh Steelers look like they're all smiles, man. They look like they're happy about this. The team is rejuvenated.
I'm just taking the production, man. The 400 yards of production. You can have a final score 16 to 10, but 400 yards of production, to me, that speaks that the points are going to come. These next 6 weeks, the points are going to come in these next few games.
Yeah,
I believe that wholeheartedly. I really do.
For sure. But we're getting close on time. Do you have any final things to say before we let everybody go? It was a good win for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah.
What do you got?
Yeah, it was a division game you had to win. We all know that. There was no Joe Burrow, but still you got to win those division games. The Steelers, there's times where they've had struggle against backups. I mean, you can just look at last week. But the defense, I thought the defense for the most part held their own. They had a couple big plays, especially there are a couple lucky ones where they got more yards than they should have. Cincinnati did. But Jamar Chase was in check, man. He didn't really get past his secondary too much. They forced Jake Browning into a turnover. They got a few sacks on him. They got pressure there, only holding them to 10. You know, you're going to take that every single week out of the season if your defense is only giving up 10, 13 points a game. But the offensive thing was definitely a breath of fresh air. I think everybody can agree to that. It was different. We know it was different. We know there were different things involved. Even if it wasn't a change of the landscape, of course it's not going to be right now, but still. Right there. Add Jamar Chase onto that list right there. So
he's right there. He's right there.
Yeah, he's right there. So that's all you got to know. But it was obviously you're going to take these division games wins. The Steelers, you always got to win your division games. But I think everybody, in terms of what they did offensively, even though there was only 16 points scored, like you said, Daniel, should have been if that challenge was made, is what it is. You're going to take that production. Those points are going to come. It's just a matter of if these next few games, if they're producing in different ways like this, these next few games, the points are going to come on the board. They absolutely are. So it's a step in the right direction. It's a reason to look forward to next week. We'll see if they can add this on, but I was pretty pleased with their performance today.
100%. And I'll finish it off with this. It's not about, if you get hot, it's when you get hot. Yeah. And right now, if the Pittsburgh hot and going into, a postseason, because I think they're going to be there. You're already 7-4. Your division record is a lot better than some of the other teams in the AFC. Your conference record is better than some of the other teams in the AFC. So you're going to get a lot of those tiebreakers, and so is the divisional record. So if the Steelers can finish it, on the right path, who knows? It's a long season. We have, what is it? 6 more games left to go.
Yep. 6 more
games. 6
games.
more games.
They got six more weeks to find a rhythm, and to get something going. But I'm confident. I'm pretty confident that they're going to after today. Confident that they're going to find some identity and some offensive ground. So, not sure where Daniel went. We'll wait for him to come back before we end the show, because I can't end the show. So you guys are stuck with me. I can't end the show till Daniel comes back. Any other thoughts, guys, in the comments? There he is. Before we go, there he is.
I just got kicked out of my own show. That's the world telling me it's time to go. Well, I appreciate it, everybody.
Yep.
Appreciate everybody.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, man. Thanks for letting me come on after the game. Appreciate it.
No problem. Go check out Nathan at In Hindsight. We also do a podcast called the Unofficial Steelers Podcast, where we talk about the Steelers post game and the upcoming game. We'll be doing an upcoming preview of the next coming game a little bit later on this week. But until then, we'll see you next time. Don't forget, Tuesday, I usually drop a little bit the start of the film breakdown. We'll see you guys.